Hello and welcome to the Go Fish Village podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Mercer, founder of Go Fish Village. As the Chinese proverb states, give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach him how to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. Today, we have a very special guest on the show. Um, a brother from Englewood, uh, multifamily division executive director at Keller Williams. I hope I'm getting that right. Almost 30 years experience in the real estate game. He was a top producer at Marcus and Millichap, where he specialized in multifamily sales. 2020 Chicago Association of Realtors Commercial Achievement Award. 2019 Platinum Sales Award. So he's getting that bag. 2019 Platinum Sales Award for Multi-Units Sold. Chairman of the association's CommercialForum committee, president of the Southside Community Investors Association. Also has his JD. Also got his bachelor's from SIU. Is it Carbondale or is it Edwardsville? Was it the party school?
It's a Carbondale, yeah. Good party.
So work hard, play hard. So I just want to thank Anthony Tony Hardy and welcome him to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for that generous introduction. Appreciate that.
So you have a JD. I didn't know that until I did some research. So how did you get into real estate sales? Generally with a JD, you think you go into law.
Yeah, so that's interesting because I got out of college when I graduated SIU. I graduated from the College of Agriculture with a degree in agribusiness economics, and coming out, one of the classes that I took on that continuum was a real estate certification class. I think it was an elective, and I just took it, right? And they had the career fair where all the employers came to the school, interviewed, and I got a few job offers and really wasn't happy with the salaries that they were offering. I think TransUnion was one of the companies. I think their salary at that time was $35,000 a year, which back in 97 was probably not that bad.
No.
But I was in the second or third interview and asked the boss, okay, this is fine, but how do I get a raise? Right? You ain't even started yet. You looking for a raise. And they told me, they said, you want to get on the fast track. I like that. You're an ambitious young man. We'll definitely hire you. If you want to raise, typical work day is 9 to 5. Those guys that's on a fast track, they work from 7 to 7. You do that for 2 years, you'll be in line for a small raise, couple $1,000. We'll bump you up to 37, 38. And
37, 38.
And I told them I wasn't interested. And I took my real estate certificate, went and took the real estate exam, and decided that I was going to work for myself from 7 to 7 for the next 2 years and see where that landed me. And started off at Century 21 Enterprise, which is a small realty that was on 85th and Stony Island, and started selling residential properties. Quickly rose to be one of the, I was one of the only guys. I was the first one in and the last one out. And right next door, and probably about, 6 months in, I started in June. By January, I'd made a little bit more than I would have made working for that company.
Oh, really?
And by the end of the next year, I owned a few small apartment buildings, and I lived in one and rented the other ones out, and I have a 3-flat around the corner. And I came home one day from a closing, and I had a check from a $25,000 condo that I sold to a guy. And they were rehabbing the building next door. I was living on 63rd in Indiana, 63rd in Michigan, and that big white building over there next door, they were rehabbing, and they just bought it. And I looked at my check, I don't know, it was probably $2,500 or something. And I looked at that building and I said, you know what? Those guys had a real estate agent. I'm a real estate agent. I'm working with investors. They're investors. One day I want to sell buildings like that. I knew I loved real estate. I knew I was going to be doing it 10 years down the road. And that's when I started knocking on doors at the commercial real estate companies, and they're like, we don't have any openings. We're not looking,
So
for,
even, I mean, they told you they didn't have any openings, even though this is pretty much like a commission only thing.
it's commission only. Yeah, it's commission only, but doing commercial deals, it wasn't very many of us doing commercial deals.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the kind of the sentiment I got. And I continued doing what I was doing. I was working with, I shift my focus to focus on investors and the first time home buyers. I like real estate, but I didn't like first time home buyers.
Yeah. Hey, I'm learning that right now because they like, yeah, we want to go see this, and that. I'm like, goodness gracious. You know what I mean? But no.
Yeah, yeah. And you show them 100 properties and then you find out the next weekend, oh yeah, we're under contract with something from somebody else.
Yeah. 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 Not cool.
So that wasn't fun. So yeah, so that's how I kind of ended up going to law school to take the shortcut. I was like, well, if I got my law degree and I come back and knock on these doors, then maybe they'll talk to me.
Oh wow, man!
And a lot.
You put yourself through that, man. That's
So
tough.
it was a long cut that
Yeah.
ended up being a shortcut, right?
Yeah.
And I came back and eventually one of the real estate firms reached out to me because I was still, when I came back from law school, I was still working with a lot of the same developers, and they were bigger. They were building stuff at that point. They were doing multifamily deals, and we actually put together a couple affordable deals on the south side of Chicago. And Marcus and Millichap reached out and said, "Hey, you just sold a couple deals down there. We'd like to talk to you. We got a hole to fill, and we can't get any traction down there. We don't understand it." And they ended up recruiting me.
Wow, that's pretty
And
cool.
I worked there for a decade, selling apartment buildings on the south side, um, and gaining a considerable amount of market share. One of my more notable transactions is I actually sold that building that I live next door to.
Really?
That gave me the idea to get into commercial real estate. I took a picture of it at that time, put it up on my vision board. I wrote a letter to the owner of the building, which was the church, the pastor of the church, and say, "Hey, I want to be your real estate agent one day. You don't know me, right? I'm not ready right now. Just, I got a couple years in the business, but I would like to be your real estate agent one day." And kept them on my radar, got to know the team over there, and eventually got an opportunity to compete with a lot of those companies that did shut the doors on me when I was first getting into the business, and won the business.
Man. So
Uh,
how does it feel to, to grow up in Englewood and on the south side of Chicago? And when you look back at your career, you're responsible for a lot of the transactions, in those neighborhoods you grew up in and used to walk through.
yeah, it felt good years ago.
Mm-hmm.
When I first got into business, I started, selling residential, and I was doing deals on some of the tougher blocks in Englewood. That's what I knew.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that we needed to show that house early in the morning because it got kind of active in the afternoon, right? And I was able to help some of the people in the community to grow. They were concerned about some of the schools around there, or their children growing up in a tough environment, and they had a little bit of equity in their property, and I wanted to make sure that we got them everything that they deserved. And I carried that. I still carry that same sentiment with my investors. I price the properties as aggressively as I can, and try to work out a deal for them. They
Mm-hmm.
only get to sell them once, right?
Yeah.
Within reason, right? And I'm fighting to help my clients to achieve generational wealth and create a legacy for their children.
So along those lines of generational wealth, um, real estate offers so many incentives from cash flow to appreciation to paying $750 on your taxes to net worth to helping you build a legacy for your family. One of the things that I always preach is if you are a first time home buyer, you should be trying to take advantage of putting down 3.5% and buying a 3 or 4 unit building versus buying a home, a single family home, or a condo. As someone who's uh, pretty much an expert in multifamily real estate, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and that's probably how I really got the idea of real estate. My granddad, when we moved, I grew up in Englewood. I was born in Englewood, basically, and uh, my granddad came to Englewood in the '70s, and he was a janitor at Shepherd, I think, Elementary, and and my grandmother, she was working at a factory, and they bought a two flat in Englewood for themselves, and eventually bought a two flat across the street. Um, and and we had a little garden apartment that we didn't rent out, but when times got tough for some family members and things like that, we had a place where they could come and pay their fair share and have a space and when times got tough, like we go through a recession or we went through the real estate cycles when things got hard, we could rent that space out as well. But we always had enough income coming from the other unit to kind of get us through.
Smart.
And being in the two flat, on the first floor in the two flat, and you're having access to the basement 90% of the time over the years, it kind of felt like a single family house, right? It was no different. We had a big yard in the back, and we just had somebody upstairs that we had to kind of work with. And I continued that I still advocate for that. If you see a nice shiny car that you want to buy, or a nice boat or whatever it is, go buy a building, right? Let me help you to find a building, or find a building in your market. And if you got $700 or $1,000 or $2,000 enough coming off that building to cover the monthly on that boat or that car, you'll be in a better position where you're not working for the car. The building is actually working for you, and it'll pay for those other things that you want in life. Same thing with the two flat. One of my largest clients, he started off house hacking. He would go in, and I think he sold a two flat. He moved into a two flat and in the basement, and fixed up the second floor and fixed up the first floor, and eventually rented it out. It appreciated over time, and they were able to sell that two flat and buy them a 10-unit apartment building.
Wow.
This was, I don't know, 2012. The same guy right now owns over 1,000 units,
Wow.
and that's where he
1,000 units.
started. All around the Midwest. He has properties in Cincinnati, he has properties in Minnesota, and properties in Chicago. And he started off just moving into a two flat and doing exactly what you're saying.
What what do you tell buyers that, because I hear people say, "Oh, I don't want to have tenants, and if I do, I don't want to buy a building on the south side." Uh, and for those who may not be from Chicago, in terms of real estate, um, in terms of wealth in Chicago, a lot of the wealth is on the north side of Chicago and downtown. What do you tell folks that don't want to really buy on the west side or south side of Chicago?
Yeah, I mean, I don't sell neighborhoods. Like if you don't like the neighborhood, then don't buy in the neighborhood. Number one consideration, I do a lot of activity on the south side of Chicago, and we know it's block by block, but I don't try to encourage somebody to go into a particular location. I think that's the most important consideration
Mm-hmm.
that you have when you're buying a property. But on the flip side of that is you don't end up where you start, right? So just like John, I was talking about earlier, he started a 2-flat in you know in the middle of the city, and now he's all over the country. I know I can tell you that story over and over again, where they started off with a 6-flat in Woodlawn, and that same owner gained momentum, gained equity, ended up buying a couple more 6-flats, and now he owns CVS's around Notre Dame, owns a Walgreens in Atlanta, Georgia. You know, I think that you have to have a trajectory. You have to have a plan. A lot of times when we're pricing these deals out for our investors, they're already thinking about when they exit the property, when they're getting in, and they have a definite period. Hey, this is where I'm going to be in 5 years with this property. They look at inflation. Yeah, my expenses are going to go up. My taxes are going to go up. My rents should increase also. And when I get to this point, I'll sell it and move this 6-flat into a 12-flat, move from a 12-flat into a 24 unit. And they grow that way. But also the opportunity is in your backyard. If you're on the south side, man, it's kind of like it's easier to operate, it's easier to manage, it's easier to deal with the challenges the closer you are to where you start. And if you're starting off, you're probably going to be doing a lot of the stuff yourself. You're probably going to be cutting the grass or shoveling the snow and doing a lot of that stuff with yourself or with people that you know. And the closer you are to it, the better position you're in. And as you grow in experience and as you grow in wealth, you can get your properties a little bit further out, and you may have some choices on and pick and choose on where you are and where you're going.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, I like that. I mean, does this surprise you? Like, so I was when I look at, when I was buying multifamilies on the south side. So I bought my first place, my first building in Chatham, and then the next two I actually bought in Beverly and then Auburn Gresham. I was surprised at how many of the multifamily owners, and when I say like multifamily, I'm talking about like 6 units and up, weren't like people of color. I was really surprised by that. And I was also surprised to see like some of the living conditions that folks were, like when you go in and you look at, you like, man, people actually like living like this. When you when you go and you see these, is it surprising to you that more people like us aren't owners of these bigger properties in our communities?
It it's not as surprising. I think the tenant pool is diverse and the owners there's diversity in ownership.
Hmm.
But I see a disconnect in the education, right?
Hmm.
All of this stuff about financials and multifamily properties and investing, they didn't teach me that in college. They didn't teach me that in law school, right? The understand how these properties work, how you invest, how your investment dollars work. Our thinking is, hey, how long is it going to take me to get my money back, right? I'm buying this property for you want me to $1 million. I'm going to need $200,000 to invest in it, right? How long is it going to take me to get my money back? That's the wrong mentality to start with. So it starts with an education, because you never lost your money. It's right there in the property. You bought it for $1 million. You put $200,000 down on it, right? So you got $200,000 in equity at a minimum to start with. Anytime you sell it, you can pull that $200,000 back out. The right approach is to look at the return that you're getting on the $200,000 that you invested versus leaving it in the bank, and what kind of return are you getting on it there? Probably you're pinching off of it and you're living off of it, and it's going down, 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 versus putting it into this property. And if it is on the south side of Chicago and it is a 8, 9, or 10 cap going in, you leveraging it, you're probably getting $25,000 a year or $50,000 a year on a $200,000 investment. So your return is probably somewhere around 20 or 30%. and your $200,000 is still there whenever you need to tap it to sell, to move on, or to refinance. So it begins with that. You also look at tax shelters. You also look at return on equity, and there's a bunch of other metrics that we have to look at, and also the growth potential, right? And that goes back to where we're starting, right? We're looking at this property over a 7-year or 10-year period. A lot of times my investors will call me back and say, hey, Tony, I'm actually hitting my 7-year numbers in year 5, or my 5-year numbers in year 3. That's because they had a roadmap. They didn't just get in there without a plan. And when they know they're hitting their numbers, they're like, I'm ahead of schedule, so I can sell this property in year 3. I can sell the 6 flat in year 3 and actually go on and move into a 12-unit or 18-unit building in a better part of town.
Wow.
That's what it is. It's a growth plan. If your goal is to buy the property and that's it, then maybe you missed something along the way anyway. Your goal should be to actually grow through the continuum and get to another stage of your development in your real estate career.
And that's where a good realtor would come in with that type of knowledge.
Yeah, it's not about the transaction so much to me. It's about the real estate. I want to know. We sit down with our clients and do strategy sessions to talk about the trajectory of their career. And I understand that I'm not going to do every deal, right? But I'll look at every deal and I'll give you my honest feedback on it, right? I'm helping a client right now price a property that's listed by another broker. It's a $5 million deal. I'm looking at the deal and I'm like, they're like, well, how? I'm like, look, if you get it, you grow. At some point, I'll be still here. I'll still be doing what I'm doing. Maybe I can help you sell it on the back end, and it should be worth $7 or $8 million. Then I'm here for you, right? I'm here for you, and this is where I would offer at. This is where I would tap out at. And if he's playing ball with you in this price range, then I'd be willing to take a closer look at it to see if it makes sense putting the deal together. But right now, from what I'm seeing, the price is a little bit rich for the stage of the cycle that we're in. I think we're in a mature part of the real estate cycle, and rents are probably going to be flat for the next couple of years. It's going to be very difficult to raise rents in what cycle we're going through as far as where we are. And it's very likely that your expenses are going to increase over the next couple of years. When you mix that in, you have to make your decision based on where we are, not where we were a year ago. And it looks like the seller is dreaming about a price that he got offered a year and a half or 2 years ago that he turned down. You don't get to do over. You don't get to take the 2018 price in 2021.
Sounds like you've given that speech a few times.
Yeah, this is my first time today, right?
So you I think you raised a good point that about the mentality. I remember when I was looking at buildings, I wasn't really looking at it from I was like, okay, I'm putting 150 grand down. How long do I take? How long is it gonna take me to get my 150? I wasn't looking at the formulas and the cap rate, and that's a really really good point. So can you just expound on that? Like, what mentality should a investor have, and maybe what are some key formulas? Obviously cap rate is super popular, but I like what you said about, you know, I'm looking, a buyer, they're basically making their money kind of when they purchase the property, and as soon as they buy it, they're already thinking about the next deal. Can you just like maybe expound on that a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. So it comes down to, let's just say $100,000 to invest. And a lot of these guys, some of the largest owners in this city, um, I know you've seen Pangea, their signs up all over. They have over 13,000 units. And that's 13,000 families paying them on average $1,000 a month, right? Do the math on that, right?
It's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money per month, right?
Yeah.
And they started off with an 8-flat, I want to say an 8-unit building, a 6-flat with 2 garden apartments on somewhere around 79th and St. Lawrence, right? Now they got properties in Chicago, Indianapolis, and Baltimore, right? One of the other groups, WPD, you see their sign up. They started off with an 8-unit building 8 or 9 years ago. Now they're running about 3,500 units from time to time. And doing some massive sales. I think they just sold a portfolio for north of $20 million. They started off, they didn't even have enough money to buy the 8-flat. They went to their friends and their family and say, we need to raise $150,000 so we can make a purchase, right? The friends and family put 10 or 15 or $5,000 into the hat. They took the money, did the right thing with it. The property did pretty well. They paid them back. Here's your 8% return that we promised you. And we also promised you a percentage of the increase on the sale. We just sold the building. Here's an additional $20,000 that you get because of the sale of the property. Those family members were like, no, you ain't getting off the hook that easy, homie. You got to do that again.
Yeah.
And your Uncle Joe found out that you didn't let him in on this deal,
Right.
and he wants in. And now they had a big pot and they were able to go in and buy 24 units.
Wow.
And the growth trajectory from there, right? So it's all about, and now they're turning down partners, right? They're like, we don't need partners anymore, right?
Yeah.
So that's the way that these properties go. And that's the thing you have to look at. You gotta deal with somebody that understands where they're starting and to be able to help you to make a plan.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not looking for somebody if you're trying to do one deal, a lot of times this is your first deal. I actually talk people out of investing on the South Side sometimes. I get a call from somebody from California or somebody from Canada saying, hey, I see this property you got here on the LoopNet or wherever, and it's a 9% return. I want to buy that property. And I'm like, well, you're in San Francisco, right? You're gonna go past all of the property. You passing up a million properties to get to this one in this neighborhood, and you don't have a plan. I don't want to see another, and you might not succeed because some of the things that are on this paper are not going to shake out in reality if you don't know what you're doing. And I don't want to see that building vacant in 2 years on my block. I'd rather a local investor or somebody has a little bit more seasoning to come in and do this. And they might go around me and buy it with another broker or buy it. Sometimes they do it anyway, and they get in trouble. But I also want to make an impact on the neighborhoods that I'm in. I'm not just trying to do a transaction and put somebody into a deal that I don't think they're going to win with. That doesn't help me, and that doesn't help them, and that doesn't help the community. And I'm probably one of the few brokers that actually pass on transactions.
Yeah,
or
especially something that big. Not too many people gonna pass on that.
You got to pass on it. It comes back, and you're sitting there, and you got to drive past it, or you got to see that property on the news when it's vacant and people are doing the wrong things in it.
So what are some of the important formulas or items that maybe an investor should look at when they're considering purchasing a multifamily?
The number one thing is the net operating income. So we use the cap rate as a metric or a snapshot of where the property is right now at this particular point in time. So I look at that snapshot, but then there's about 15 other metrics that we look at to make a decision on whether or not this is a great investment. One of the things that's driving the ship right now is what we call your levered return or your cash on cash return. And that's the return that you're going to make on your down payment. The cap rate assumes that you buy the property all cash, right? So if I'm looking at a $500,000 investment or $1 million investment at an 8 cap, that's an 8% return on $1 million. It's about $80,000 a year, right? Which is okay. But if I lever that and I go in and I get that 8 cap and I only have to put down $200,000, eat. So with $1 million, so I don't have to buy it cash. I can buy it with 200,000. And because interest rates are so attractive right now, I just got a quote for interest rate on a multifamily building. The lawyer that's looking at the deal didn't even believe me.
Wow.
Like, who's gonna offer me 3.5% on a apartment building? And I'm like, these guys will give it to you, you know. And one of the reasons they'll give it to you is because I'm representing you. And I do a lot of volume with these lenders, and they want to continue to get that business. Yeah. Another thing is they're after Keller Williams. Keller Williams closes about $1 billion a day in real estate transactions, and they want more of that, and we all do, right?
Yeah.
So and that's the other metric. So now when you leverage it, your percentage of return should increase. 8% is great. Your money in the bank is probably getting 2% if it's doing good, right? The stock market, you get 8% sometimes you get negative 8%, right? But when you look at it over time, the leverage, but you don't get the tax shelter, you don't get the this, you don't get the that. The leverage should take your 8% up to about an 18%. So now you're making your $200,000 or your $100,000 investment is making $18,000, or your $200,000 is making $36,000 a year, versus you making $1 million and making $80,000 a year because you're partnering with the bank, right, to do the deal. So we will look at your cash on cash return. We look at your cap rate to see where things are. We also look at your gross rent multiplier, and that comes into play when you sell the property. And I get some people that don't want to ever sell property. That's I think one of the biggest disconnects, because when you do, from our community, you're talking about our community, when you do end up buying a 6 flat or a 12 flat, a lot of people around you think you have arrived, and they come around and tell you, oh man, you're doing good. You own this 12-unit apartment building, and you want to hold on to it for the rest of your life because it makes you feel good. But at some point, you need to look at exiting that property. And on your exit, sometimes I have to explain to our people that, look, you can sell this property today and get 8 times gross. That's 8 years worth of rent in one day, one afternoon at the title company, right? Not including the expenses. And if you got 12 Section 8 tenants, that's 12 annual inspections times 8 years that you don't have to do. Right. That's all those property taxes and operating expenses and all that stuff that you don't have to do. And you can leverage that into a less management intensive real estate transaction, like a Starbucks, right? Or like a Walgreens, or like a Chipotle. Something you don't have to do nothing but walk to your mailbox, pull out your check, and deposit it in your bank. And really, it's not even that hard. They call it mailbox money, but they direct deposit it now. You just look at your phone on the first, and Starbucks made the payment.
So that's a good thing. I'm glad you brought that up, and that a good transition to exit strategy. So a lot of times, we see, or I see homes or buildings that haven't been kept up over time. And when you got to make those huge capital improvements, that's a lot of money that you have to come up with. So are you saying that, okay, maybe you should start thinking about selling the building, give it to somebody else, take those profits, and then flip it into something else that's less labor intensive and potentially a lot more profitable?
Yeah, on a small level and a large level. I talked earlier about selling the building next door to me, right? The 25-story 63rd in Michigan building, right? For the church. And what happened is, when I looked at the building in '99 when they were rehabbing it, when I got out of SIU, and I was committed to working from 7 to 7 for myself, 7 in the morning to 7 p.m. Their construction crews started at 7 in the morning. So if I heard a nail gun or a bulldozer backing up or something like that, I knew I was late for work. I would get out and go to work. Well, fast forward to 2018, when they actually put the building on the market, that rehab was 18 years old at that point. So they were looking at some point over the next 5 or so years having to freshen up the rehab and do it again. And we did the math on it,
Okay.
and we did the time involved on it. And they were like, look, we're at a different stage in our real estate career.
Right.
We don't want to rehab that building again,
Mm-hmm.
right? We'll let the next guy rehab the building.
Got you.
Right? They sold the building. They donated a couple $1 million to the church, right? They're doing an opportunity zone development in Washington Park. And what they wanted to do, the whole reason they were investing in apartments in the first place was to clean up the neighborhood, right? And make an impact in the neighborhood. And now they figured that they can make a bigger impact by doing some other things in the community than rehabbing that building, which when they purchased it, the Department of Housing and Urban Development told them it was one of the most troublesome buildings in their portfolio. Right? They cleaned that up, and now you had investors from all over the country bidding on that property. We had investors that own basketball teams, I think the Minnesota Timberwolves and some other companies that wanted to get in on that to buy that property because of what they did to it over the 20 years to get it to the point that it was. Right? And it was some local investors too. And it was some African-American investors too. And I'm always pulling for the African-American investors that want to get in. And there are some very successful African-American investors in Chicago that are doing some really good things. I wish that there were more, right? But that's what I'm here for, to kind of pull you in and help you get your first 6 flat and help you look at the numbers on that first 12 flat and show you how we can do some things over the next 4 to 5 years to force appreciation in those deals. You can't do that in a lot of these houses in 2 flats the same way you can in a 6-unit, a 12-unit, or 24-unit building. And if we look at it over a 7-year hold period or 5-year hold period, there's some things that we can do. But if our goal is to close on the deal, you're going to close on the deal and you're not going to grow. It's got to be about growth. It can't be all about me taking the money to go buy my boat. It's got to be about putting some money back into the deal so that we can make it a better place, so that when we get to the 5-year mark, the property will be actually more valuable than it was. I get my equity back plus the equity that I created by creating a garden unit, or the equity I created by adding a bathroom or putting a laundry in the building or something like that. And we look at all those things and we talk to our clients about that going in. Yes, you got to buy it right. But after you buy it right, what does this look like in year 3, 4, and 5? And if we know the how the NOI or how the net operating income or how the rents will grow over the next years, if you do X, Y, and Z, and it's predictable in these, it's a little bit more predictable, we can look at the NOI divided by your cap rate and tell you what you can sell it for in year 7, 6, 5, 4, and 3, and 2, 1. And that's how they know I'm hitting my year 3 numbers. That means my property that I bought for $1,250,000 now is worth $1,550,000. I've paid down my mortgage by X amount. I put in this much down payment. I'm coming out of here with $500,000 or $600,000. Plus, I've collected $40,000 a year over the last 3 years. I'm ready to go. Yeah, I started in Englewood. Yeah, I started in Woodlawn, but now I'm ready to go to Chicago Lawn. I'm ready to go to Alsip or wherever you're ready to go to, and we help them to move those things around. And there's somebody else that wants to get in. I'm calling you to say, hey, this guy's on his way out. Do you want to get in?
Man, I'm gonna call you the multifamily godfather. You breaking it down for real. So that's good. Good info, and that kind of leads into a few things. So the 1031 exchange I want to talk about. I want to talk about. It sounds like you can't be emotional when it comes to this, and then I also want to talk about at what point does real estate become passive? Because if you're trying to grow it and you got to do these, every 5 years, maybe exit out to take your, whatever appreciation cash flow and then are reinvested, it sounds like it can't, like, how does it get passive? Because it's almost like a myth that people think that real estate, you know, I just, it's a passive type of thing. Is that true?
So it takes a massive action, right? Especially to get going, right? So these guys got in, and they had, like we said, they had to pass the hat around to get the first 8 units.
Uh-huh.
Now they got 3,600 units, or now they got 13,000 units or 30,000 units, right? And it's being able to scale that business to a point where the owner of Pangea Properties don't even work there anymore, right? There's enough money coming off of the property where he's went and started another business that he don't work at anymore, and another business that he don't work at anymore. So it's in that growth, right? But he's not hoarding it all. He gives his people a little bit of percentage of ownership, right? So they're not gonna steal because they can steal them from themselves, and they're definitely not gonna let anybody else steal, right?
Right.
So multifamily investment is not passive. It's not a passive investment, not at the level that we're talking about playing at. When you have a couple garden communities with 150 units in it and things like that, it's still not passive. It's a lot of management. It's a lot of talking to your team to make sure that they're doing the right things, and a lot of troubleshoot. The thing you're looking at on these deals is, I was just talking to an investor that started out. He's like, look, I buy 6 flats. Every time I buy a 6 flat, I give myself a $30,000 a year raise. But I definitely don't have to work 40 hours a week to get the $30,000. But some days I'm there from sun up, I'm there the whole week dealing with a flood in the basement. Or I'm there all night trying to put out, different fires and this and that. But a lot of the times I'm not, it's rolling. It just goes, right? So it's not a passive investment, but that's another thing is when we do plan a strategy session, we look at your real estate trajectory and we look at your real estate career. And the goal is to move you up from where you start to get into less and less management intensive investments until you get into an investment that is passive, because it's not the best thing. Like some of these guys like, well, I'm gonna leave this building to my children. I'm like, do you love your children? If you love them, you probably wouldn't leave it to them. Wow. But because it's a lot of work that's going on. Your son went to college, like you told him. You took the money from this building and you put him through New York University, or you put him through Notre Dame. Now he's got married. He's doing his thing. Yeah. Now you want him to come back over here and manage this building and deal with these tenants and these issues that you have to deal with every day? Yeah. Right? But if you sell the building, we actually helped the guy sell one of his buildings that he loved. And he did what you said, he did a 1031 exchange, and he bought a CVS. And now the CVS has a 25-year lease. It's a triple net, which means there's absolutely no landlord responsibility. Wow. If somebody drove a truck into the side of the CVS today, he probably, his phone might not even ring, right? If something happens in it, because that's CVS's responsibility, right? And you look at a tenant like Walgreens. It's a 100-year-old company. They haven't missed a payment in 100 years. You don't have to deal with that. Every 25 years, every 10 years, you have to have your lawyer renegotiate the lease or look at renewing the lease or something like that. But it's not a day in and day out thing. And that's what we try to trade up. And it's like selling the property in Englewood and buying a property in Oak Park. You're going to have less to do or less hands-on work to do to manage a 24 unit in Oak Park than you are to manage a 6 unit in South Shore. And that's what it is as you grow, you should be able to get bits and pieces of your life back. And as you get older, to be able to do the things that's important and spend more time with your family and more time with your friends and more time doing the things that matter, more time on that boat that you bought. You bought a boat now, you probably ain't gonna be on it that much because you're gonna be dealing with a lot of stuff. So the 1031 is important. The 1031 exchange is a very important vehicle to help you to lever up again. You sell that property for $1 million, your tax, the income tax you need, the capital gain tax you need to pay on that, maybe $200,000, $300,000, or $400,000, depending on what you did.
Mm-hmm.
You could take that $200,000, $300,000 and reinvest it into a 1031 exchange. You can win.
Okay.
And you don't have to do that. You can defer those taxes to a later date.
So just so people know, the 1031 exchange is when you sell a property, you have a certain amount of time to basically take the proceeds from that sale and buy another property to avoid, paying all those taxes. So I just wanted to
Correct.
break
Yeah.
that down.
Yeah.
And so real estate shouldn't be an emotional thing either. Because when I first got into it, I was thinking about what you said. I'm going to leave all of these to my children. But now that I think about it, I do have a building and now things are starting to go wrong. Like I got a quote on 2 of the bathrooms need to get fixed and it's like 30 grand. I'm like, man, I'm almost right back where I started, when I bought it. So it's like 100 grand in equity. So I'm like, maybe I need to sell it instead of, give it to the next guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, this is you. I'm gonna take these proceeds from this sale and I could lever up just like you're saying. And this is something that I wasn't even thinking about. And I could see how people how properties
there. I gotta get a charger. Hold on a
okay,
second.
I could pause it.
Keep going. I can hear you. I just can't see you.
Okay. No, I could see how investments can go wrong if you leave a property to your heirs and you want it to be passive, but at the same time, you left it to them in a state where the property needs a lot of updating. So it can't be passive. And after you done sent them to college and so on and so forth, you want them to pursue their dreams thinking that you had left them a passive investment when in fact it's not a passive investment.
Property over and we're looking at a property for a client. There's a Walgreens in Las Vegas on the Strip, and it has a 75-year lease, and the income coming off the property is somewhere around $60,000 a month. Would you rather leave your children $60,000 a month for the next 75 years? Even if you live 50 more years, they still got 25 years at $60,000 a month. And that's the conversation we're having with our clients is he would rather leave them the Walgreens than leave them $6 million, because the $6 million, they can screw it up.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Damn.
But 25 years at $60,000 a month, $30,000 a month, $10,000 a month, or $5,000 a month over a 10-year period, they got time to make some mistakes, get it back together, and pull out of it, right? So those are the kind of things that you're looking at when you're looking at those long-term investments. You guys on the south side of Chicago, that Starbucks on 71st and Jeffrey has probably sold 3 times over the last 10 years. For somewhere around $1 million. I think the last time it sold for about $1.7 million.
So how do people get into these investments? We gotta go see The Godfather. We gotta go see Tony.
Because you can't, like, they can't advertise it, right? When we don't want the employees, like the employees don't even understand that the building is for sale, not the business.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Right. So you don't want your worker or even somebody that's going there to work to be looking for an apartment on the internet and see that Starbucks is for sale or the CVS that they shopping at is for sale and come and tell the manager or somebody that this property. I was actually at a CVS with a brother that owned a few of them in the suburbs, and we were there doing a business meeting, and this guy, like, if you looked at him, you would think, he's driving like a 1995 Jeep. Yeah, Timex on, like he doesn't look like he owns millions of dollars worth of real estate. And somebody left their credit card, and the manager came over to our table and asked the owner of the property, did he take somebody's credit card?
Whoa.
And I'm glad it wasn't me, but he was older and more mature. And he got up. He said, yeah, I did come over and buy some coffee. And he helped them find the credit card. It was on the floor under the something. And he went over and helped, looked around, and they actually found it. And he never said, I own this property. I you know what I mean? Anything like that. And he was real humble about it, and he helped him do it. So you can get into those deals. There are people that look like us that own those properties, but they're not in the normal spaces where you look to find them, because they don't want. It's like an apartment building. When we sell an apartment building, we don't put a sign out in front and say this property is for sale, right? And what's the likelihood that somebody's driving by the building is going to say, "Oh wow, that's for sale. I'm going to give you $5 million for it." No. We have to do it a little bit more discreetly than that. And if that's where you're looking, then we can help you. We can help you identify some opportunities that you didn't even think of. Like right now, DaVita Dialysis is a really hot investment. Though they're doing really good business, they're COVID proof, they're internet proof, and not a bad investment for somebody that's looking to do something that is more passive. There's nothing to do as a landlord other than check your bank statement on it first.
So you mentioned COVID proof. Commercial, like retail places, are taking a hit right now. Um, where do you see real estate going now that more people are working from home? And when I say real estate, commercial real estate, where do you see that going in the future? And how risky of an investment is it to purchase a office space or invest in something like a Starbucks, or certain things, no matter what, people go shop and go to, obviously, a DaVita, a healthcare center, or people got to get their coffee. But so the first part is, where do you see real estate going in the future because of COVID, commercial real estate?
Yeah. So I think that the market is shifting right now, and there's some things that are changing in the marketplace. So COVID, some retail investments are doing better, and some retail investments are doing worse. For instance, during the cycle, um, you know, I think Cheesecake Factory, they closed their doors. The movie theaters, they're in big trouble. And some of these places where more people came, but some of the other places like Wendy's and Burger King and McDonald's, the drive-throughs, their business exploded through that. So you have to look
Mm,
at the risk and the rewards. Also, some of the apartment buildings downtown Chicago took a big hit because of what they were selling. They were selling, don't worry about how small your apartment is. They're selling micro units. Your apartment is basically just somewhere you go to sleep. Your
mm-hmm,
backyard is downtown Chicago. We got 3 floors of amenities.
mm.
And but COVID shut down those 3 floors of amenity, and your backyard was pretty much shut down.
Yeah.
So a lot of those people moved out, and but the South Side became a little bit more attractive during that time because we had bigger apartments. Everybody decided, hey, I need to have a home office, right?
Right.
Everybody decided, hey, there's so many people out of work. They started teaming up and they needed bigger spaces. So you could get a bigger space in Woodlawn or a bigger space in Bronzeville for less dollars. And they, for the first time since they've been recording it, the South Side and the West Side are actually outperforming downtown and the North Side, where rents are
Really?
going backwards.
Oh man, that's
So those investments are boding well.
mm,
Um, yeah, so you just have to look at the risk reward, and I think that those office buildings downtown, people have been going for more of the suburban office spaces or the single and two-story office spaces where they can kind of control their own narrative a little bit more. But eventually they'll shift. They'll shift from what they've been doing to maybe employees need a little bit more space per foot, right? Versus, having a cubicle with people right on top of each other. There was also the shared co-work spaces. A lot of that's going, not doing as well. And some of these companies were actually moving in and starting building co-living spaces. We are strategizing with those owners to reconfigure things, but they'll be back. Yeah. And you have to look at it as an opportunity and see if there's an opportunity for you to get in while people haven't figured things out. When they got it figured out, you have to pay too much for it. But while there's uncertainty, you can go in like the guy that owns Quicken Loans did, and the basketball team went into Detroit and bought everything.
Yeah, he bought everything downtown, Dan Gilbert.
Yeah, and he figured it out, though. He said, look, you guys come back here, I'll give you a very cheap rent, right? Where rent was $25 a foot, he let them come in there for $8 a foot. But he said, when your business gets to doing business more than $1 million a year, I want a percentage of that. I want 2% or 3% of the gross income from your business when you hit $2 million. And now those businesses are doing $1 million a year. And when he does his trajectory, he's getting $40 a foot where where the market was $20 a foot at its peak. It's because he had a strategy, he had a plan, and it wasn't based on what was happening today. It was looking at a 5, 7, or 10-year horizon.
I like that. So having a strategy. So, and this is perfect because I really want to ask you this question. So I'm a guy or a girl just out of college, or let's say I'm 2 years out of college. So I got 2 years work experience. Let's say I'm making, 70 grand a year. I want to get into real estate because I really feel that it's a solid investment and it can help me create generational wealth. What's a recommended like high level strategy that somebody should do?
I think you just gotta start where you are. I mean, it may be starting off buying a house that's undervalued around the corner from you, getting your cousins to go in there and paint it and change out the drywall, and either renting it out or selling it. I know a guy that bought a bunch of properties like that and rented them all out. He has like 40 or 50 houses now. And as the tenants move out and decide to move on, or he'll clean them up and sell them off one by one, or he'll help the tenants to become homeowners. But it's not saying, oh, I'm gonna buy this house because I can flip it and make $50,000. If you can flip it and make $50,000, what are you gonna do with it, right? And what happens if it takes you longer to do it than you thought you would, right? You think you're gonna do this in 3 months, you're gonna get in, you're gonna get out, and then what are you gonna do? If you don't, and it's just having a strategy and a plan and a growth continuum. A lot of the deals I do for people, the first deal, I'm not after your first, like the first deal. I'm looking at where you're going after that. And if it's just, I'm not a transactional broker, right? I can care less. I'm not interested in closing a deal to earn a commission to put you in a situation that you may not win at. It's getting yourself into a situation that you can win. And a lot of times you do have to start in your backyard. And you definitely don't start where you end up. Speaking of 1031 exchange, I know an investor that has some properties in Pilsen. He just sold the property in Arizona that was 500 units, and that property sold for $30 or $40 million. And I asked him, well, how did you get into that deal? And he said, Tony, I started this deal when I was 21. He's in his 60s now. And he said, I sold a 2-flat in Pilsen. It was a 1031 exchange, and I exchanged into a 4-unit. And I sold that 4-unit a few years later and exchanged into a 10-unit. and I sold that 10 unit. I did a 1031 exchange into a larger building, and eventually 20 years later, 30 years later, I'm in that same exchange. And now I'm selling this 500 unit deal in Arizona, and I really need you to help me find an investment, because if I don't, I'm gonna have to pay all of those taxes back.
Man, man, that's solid, man. That's solid.
Yeah.
Honestly, out of all of the interviews I've done, I mean, this is you really dropping some real gems, especially about the 1031 exchange. And I feel like you dispelling a lot of myths of, because I saw a shirt, or I saw like a meme on Instagram. It was like, don't sell grandma's house, you know, when in actuality, hey, grandma, sell the house and level up, like don't leave a headache for your kids or your heirs, because they might be forced to sell it. Because I've gut rehabbed a few places, and a lot of times when you gut rehab, I mean, that can wipe away profits that you made over a 10-year period, so, but I've also gut rehabbed the place, and I forced the appreciation. I bought a place, a mixed use place in Beverly, and then it just so happened that the neighbor bought the mixed use place, but they put $2 million into their spot. I put 200 into mine, and then the Evergreen Plaza, got redone, and that just helped my little 2 unit, increase in its value. So 100% with everything that you're saying. Tony, do you have any events or coming up, or is it there a way that people can, if they want to follow you and you know uh, hear more information or stay in tune with what you're doing, how would people do that?
Yeah, we have events regularly. The Commercial Forum, we have an event. You can go to the Chicago Association of Realtors website, look for the Commercial Forum. That's a way to get into commercial and start getting around people that are in the business, real estate practitioners that want to see you level up and want to see you successful. If you're on the south side of Chicago, look for the Southside Community Investors Association. We meet monthly. It's a large group of landlords that get together to share resources, to share best practices, and sometimes when times are tough, to cry on each other's shoulders. Just a support groups that I volunteer at to kind of help to educate people on moving to their elevating their game to the next level. So that's the Chicago Association of Realtors, Commercial Forum, the Southside Community Investors Association, which both are well, Southside is a not-for-profit, and we're looking at making an impact in our community. And there's veteran property owners in there and some of them are retiring, some of them are mentoring people and showing how they got to where they got in their life, and
Wow.
really, and those are some places. Also, Keller Williams ONEChicago is where I work. That's a real estate office. There's 450 residential agents there, and we have a commercial division that's growing with about 30 commercial agents, and we want to help. Those are some places that you can go to find. I'm easy to find. I'm all over. Just Tony Hardy, Chicago. There'll be a lot of information. My cell phone, my email address is out there, and I'd be more than willing to take a call or talk to you or point you in the right direction. A lot of the deals that you're doing, I'm at a point in my career where I'm focused on certain product
Yeah,
types
send me all them deals you don't want.
and certain deal size.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, call Josh. He'd be a good person to help you out with this property or that property, or definitely go to him to get some insurance and talk to him about an insurance quote and things like that. But I'm not trying to do all the deals. I'm trying to help you to level up, and maybe my goal is for you to be able to come back at some point where you qualify or you're playing ball at a level that I can really help you to take your game to the next level.
How many units or deals have you done over the course of your career?
The course of my career, so I don't know. Like I wanted to find out how many I did over the course of my career, but I know in the last 10 years I've done over 150 transactions that were more than $1 million. Some of them as high as $20 million. So right now we're focused on deals between $5 and $30 million. I am looking for a junior commercial agent to come in and take on some of those deals between $2 and $5 million right now. But it's just not like, hey, I want to get into commercial and give me all the $2 million deals. We gotta talk, and we gotta look and see if you're a fit for the opportunity. But I'm especially looking
read the fine print.
I'm especially looking for minorities. I'm
Yeah.
really looking for a minority female to join our team, because I believe that Black people can sell commercial real estate and women can sell commercial real estate if given the opportunity. And it was so hard for me to get into this business and get into these doors. I went to law school and came back to get into commercial real estate. I want to open those doors up and give some opportunities to more people that look like me and those people. It's really your mentality and your confidence level. If you got that, a lot of this other stuff we can build into you, but you got to be willing to learn and you got to be willing to work. I have talked to some people that say, hey, I'm not doing this and I'm not doing that. I'm like, well, this is a job interview, right?
Yeah. why do brokers fail, you think?
I don't know. I mean, everybody's not cut out for real estate, and also it's having somebody that's willing to take the time to help you along, right? And that's what we do. I spend a lot of time with my team, trying to pour into them and help them to level up, sharpen their axe. We spend time sometimes twice a day, just learning and just trying to get our craft better. And you gotta want to do it. We can't say, hey, where are you for this meeting? Call him and find out where he is. You need to be in the meeting, right? And right now it's real easy because you can do it from wherever you are in the world with Zoom, like we're doing now. So I think failure is, you got to fail sometimes. Sometimes failing is the road to success. And a lot of times when I talk to investors, everybody want to talk about the last deal that they closed, but I want to know about the last deal that you didn't buy. Why did you pass on a deal? That gives me a greater insight. I want to know about a deal that you lost money on. That's what I asked the investor about. What did you learn from that? So that I can take that and share it with the next guy. How, on to help them to level up. Failure is not such a bad thing. You got to fail to succeed, right? You look at Babe Ruth. I got a picture of him up in my office, right? When he was the home run champion, he hit more home runs that year than anybody. He also struck out more times that year than anybody in the history of baseball. But he went up there with the mentality, I'm going to knock this ball out of the park. And sometimes he swung at it so hard that he spent all the way around after he swung the bat. And that's what I get up and do every day. I try to knock it out of the park. And people around me, I encourage them to do the same thing.
I like that. Anthony Tony Hardy, Executive Director, Multifamily Investment Advisors, Keller Williams Commercial, Keller Williams ONEChicago. You've been a great guest, man. Thank you. And I really appreciate you dropping the gems today.
Thanks, Josh. Talk to you soon.
All right.